All right. Good afternoon.
It's empty
Here
on
we
the
are.
it's empty on the table.
There's a lot of knowledge in the room. Yeah. I think the knowledge per person has gone up in this episode compared to the last ones.
Or the knowledge leakage.
Yeah, I think we lost our common sense.
yeah. So Mr. Regulation,
he's regulating something else. I mean, what should he be doing otherwise?
I don't know. He's a typical European regulating stuff. So he's probably. It's a crazy thing that the wildest guy from our podcast is very deep into regulation. So that's
Yeah, we all have our faults and errors, right? So I think that's Case's ones. But do we know what Case is doing?
Case had a company meeting that he could not miss.
Okay.
And of course, Mr. Green is still a top priority for Case. This week he's into that. But I hope he comes back from that company meeting with some nuggets for our next episode.
I think he will. So I think Florian is out for the same reason then, I guess, because they're both from Mr. Green. Nevertheless, I think we had a lot of episodes with guests. Now we don't have any guests, but we do have a very nice agenda, I think. So for today on the agenda, we'll start with some rumors about Elon's pay package, of which you've been very vocal already for like maybe 10 years. Then we'll dive into Elon on energy. So he's been saying some stuff around improving the energy buildup in the US and also using it for compute power. We've seen Optimus dancing, so we'll dive into that. We see a lot more of FSD in right-hand countries. What does it mean? What do we see? And then there has been a visit of Trump with a couple of guys, including Elon, in the UAE and what they've said there. So we'll give a quick debrief. And then there was a conversation between Satya Nadella and Elon Musk also this week. So I'll give a little bit of insights. And then last, but certainly not least, we'll also go into one of the tweets you were very vocal about today when I came here and we just had a quick chat of Robert Scoble and the future. So I think it's a very packed and nice agenda. So let's start with the first thing here on the agenda, which is Elon his pay package. So there has been quite some discussions about his pay package. I think he has a very, I would say, out of the ordinary pay package, right, for a CEO. So his former pay packages from years ago when
2016 from top of my head.
2016 could be. I don't know the exact date. I do know that by that time, Tesla was around 50 to 60 billion in value. And his pay package, there was no salary. There was no cash going to him. He just said, I all want everything to be settled in shares. So fully aligned with all the shareholders. And for his maximum pay package, the company had to go more than 10x. So it had to go to 650 billion in value. I think in around 5 years. Now, 2 or 3 years ago, there has been a lot of discussion about this pay package because it got crushed by one of the judges in Delaware who said that it's not approved in the right order by the board and by the shareholders, etc. So there was another voting and we voted for it last year. We discussed it on the podcast. We were in favor again, but it was overruled. And now there's rumors of a new pay package. So we haven't heard any details on it. There are no leaks on details there. But can you give us your take, Demian, on let's say the pay package, why you think it's one of the most crucial things for Tesla, and also maybe some flavor of how you would structure it?
Sure. Yeah. So Elon is the CEO of Tesla as a company. He's also one of the co-founders of the business. But Elon currently owns less than 20% of Tesla as a whole company. So he's a minority shareholder. So in that sense, Elon is aligned as a shareholder with the company. So with that, you assume that all your decisions that you make are also in line with other shareholders. But that is not very forward-looking. So you can Elon could also decide at this moment, like, okay, have many activities going on in the world. I hire another CEO, and I just remain involved as advisor or whatever shareholder. So In one of the other interviews that Elon recently gave, at least that's what you told me, is that Elon wants to commit for 5 more years of Tesla at least. In interviews that Elon had in the past was that he wants to stay CEO for Tesla for the foreseeable future. He's hugely passionate about the role that Tesla plays in the future of society. But you also want to have the interest of the shareholders aligned with the CEO, and the compensation package that has the most alignment with shareholders is that if a share rises, or the let's say the market cap of a company rises, that then the CEO is being paid. Well, Elon is always of the extremes, right? So he said, I'd rather have no salary, so no waste in the monthly payment that he has. I'd rather be compensated on the success that I bring the company. Well, you run a company, I run a company. If, let's say, one of our guys would come to me, it's like, you only have to pay me when I reach certain results, and we can have a discussion of what type of results we we want to achieve together. So you say, okay, I'm going to bring in 100 new clients, and I only want to get paid when I get this 100 clients. But then I want a little bit of a better payment than I have right now. Then it's almost like a no-brainer, right? They say, well, that sounds great. Let's do it. But somehow it's very unusual in business, because we're always used to salaries and maybe a bonus structure or something in that realm. This is a direct payment basically from the shareholders of a company, because the shareholders actually then need to allocate shares for Elon to get this compensation package. But I'm very curious, because at that moment, I remember it very vividly, when the company was at 40 billion and that compensation package was announced. The first reaction in media was like, this is ridiculous. He's never going to get paid. How on earth are we going to get to 650 billion in market cap? Well, at that moment, I recently bought shares in the company. I said, well, this is amazing. I have shares in the company right now, and this is their vision. They want to get to 650 billion, which was a 10x at that point, 12x. So I said, well, everything is aligned, that's great. Warren Buffett always says, like, the best stocks you can buy are the stocks that you, buy, and for the next 10 years, you don't have to pay attention to. And if management is aligned and incentives are aligned and products is aligned, that's basically then the case with Tesla. So I will be very much in favor that Tesla gets this done. And I think the majority of the Tesla shareholders will, obviously be in favor of Elon being the CEO of the company and get compensation for that.
Yeah. What was your thinking back in the days when you heard about that package? I think the media was quite vocal about it being crazy and being out of the ordinary and unachievable, etc. And you said, all right, it gave me actually some peace of mind. But what was your thinking? Did you think it was achievable? How did you think the setup was for himself as well?
Well, at that moment, there were let's say the Tesla retail community wasn't that big at that moment, but there were a couple of them that were already vocal with their bull case of Tesla. So the Model 3 ramp, FSD was not so much a part of it, but it was more the pure becoming market leader in this whole EV transition. That was the main thing at that moment. And at the moment, there was a huge uncertainty of the Model 3 still being ramped, and it was being monitored very closely by everybody involved in Tesla. So Tesla bulls were very positive about it. Tesla bears said, well, this company is going to get bankrupt. And at that moment, this compensation package was when Tesla was a little bit out of the weeds, so their cash flows were all good at that moment. But then that compensation pack was being announced, and I saw that as a sort of stamp of
vote of confidence.
Yeah, and trust that say, okay, leadership is only going to earn some money when the company is being successful. And on the opposite is also sometimes, right? So last year we saw the compensation package of Peter Rollington of Lucid Air, banking out like 300 million.
I think even more. So I'll ask Grok in the meantime, but I think it was around like 300-400 million that he got.
Yeah, like crazy amounts of money that is being extracted out of the company. And Peter's position in Lucid is more or less the same as Elon's position in Tesla. So he founded the company. He's an ex-engineer of Tesla, by the way. So he's a former Tesla engineer working on the Model S. So he personally banked in a situation where Lucid was making big losses on every car they
still
sold.
do,
And still do. So the interest of, in this case, the Saudis and Peter Rollington were not aligned. Peter Rollington can now, buy an island on the Cayman Islands, for example, and just live a peaceful life out of the millions that he made out of Lucid, while shareholders are potentially losing all their money in this company.
Yeah. So I looked it up in the meantime, and so I don't have the 2024 numbers, but 2023 he got a 6.8 million cash payout, and in 2022 he received 379 million, of which 575k in base salary, and then 370 million plus in stock awards. So he got stock awarded there as well. Still pretty high. It's based on the high valuations we had in 2021 and 2022. And actually in 2021 he received 566 million in remuneration. So still pretty high. 2 million bonus as well. So and other benefits 6.6 million. Anyways, like pretty high. Something we haven't seen with Elon. So looking at his pay package the last time, it was actually 2018. So indeed, just before the
rally,
and the Model 3 ramp. And they were at 59 billion in market cap, and they had to go to 650, just like we discussed.
But was it only market cap? I remember that there were also some softer milestones that needed to be achieved.
Yeah, so there were more
profitability.
Yeah, so revenue and EBITDA. So he had tranches, so it was layered. So for each tranche that they achieved, or that he achieved, so which was with a 50 billion increment, and he had to double first for the first tranche the valuation, so to at least 100 billion, and then for every 50 on top, he got additional per tranche. So the revenue and EBITDA, it says for each tranche, Tesla also needed either annual revenue of 20 billion to 175, depending on the tranche. So the higher the tranche as well, or adjusted EBITDA of 1.5 billion to 14 billion, 1.4. And Elon Musk had to remain CEO and chairman CTO for 5 years after earning each tranche to keep the shares. So it also has a lock-in. So I think all of those things, it basically said, all right, we have, I think it's a 5-year window, which they first had, so until 2023. And then the shares in the last tranche, which I think were unlocked in 2023, they only got to him after 5 years. Yeah. So it would settle, let's say, a compensation package to retain the CEO, which I think is a brilliant guy, for at least 10 years.
Yeah. And what I liked about it back in the time was not only that it was tied to market cap, because then you get this crazy Lucid situation where basically the stock is being pumped by their own CEO, right? So he's promoting then the car as sort of top car, and basically promoting Lucid as a company. But one of the famous things that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger always have is that compensation packets are the most important thing, because what you compensate is what you then get. So if your CEO is only compensated on stock options on the total market cap of a company and not on the underlying business fundamentals like profitability and revenue, you get this crazy sort of hypey situations where they only focus on the perceived value of the company instead of the real value. So what I liked about it is that there were also some sort of revenue leaps that a company needed to make to get to that point.
Yeah. Now, I think it's also good to look at the outcome. So what actually happened, right? So in 2022, Tesla actually hit more than $1 trillion in market cap, so which was almost double the 650.
Yeah.
So he unlocked all the 12 tranches, earning a stock options worth of $56 billion at peak valuation. Revenue hit $81.5 billion, so also achieved the highest tranche. And the EBITDA cleared all the hurdles as well. So the impossible was doable in the end.
So he did not only hit it out of the park, but he hit it out of the parking lot as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think he hit it into another country basically. So it's just mind-boggling, and also like maybe in hindsight, and it's also when you're a long-term shareholder in any company, you know, people will say, well, buying Apple 15 years or 10 years ago, maybe 20, was a no-brainer. But well, we've been shareholders, and you even longer. It's quite a journey, you know, it's quite volatile. A lot has happened. There's always, let's say, fear, uncertainty, and doubt going on, any company. So looking backwards, it might look like something that's like, all right, obvious, it's kind of obvious, and Model 3 ramp went well. But back in those days, Tesla was burning cash. They had to raise more funds, and every time the Model 3 ramp didn't go as planned, the plans were not finalized. They were not sure to achieve the targets that they wanted to. So it was, I would say a very...
Yeah, it was sleeping at the factory floor times. You know, it was all hands on, crazy times. Yeah. Elon referred to it in his last shareholder calls, like we as Tesla had many like near-death experiences. And that was definitely a period where many of those near-death moments were sort of on the verge of happening. And that's... I think now it's a different picture, because I think for energy, for automotive, there are more or less clear growth paths. Mm-hmm. They're doubling down on AI and full self-driving. But if they need to get back to automotive, I'm quite sure they can execute on, let's say, lower cost models and all that. But they choose to have the resources now on Cybercabs and FSD and maybe the Optimus bot. But that's also very much AI driven.
Yeah.
So that it's you need, I think maybe that's sometimes also one of the challenges as Elon as a CEO. He still sometimes has this sort of or nothing mentality, because the way he thinks is like AI and robotics are going to make the biggest difference for the company at this moment, and are the ones where we can have the largest competitive advantage. So we focus all our time and energy on that. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of investors, let's say traditional investors, they would love to see, for example, a clear timeline on the ramp of energy, or a clear timeline on the introduction of more affordable models. Yeah. So you would almost say like Tesla is now so big at this point, becoming, if you believe at the announcement that are being made, that it's going to be the most valuable company by far in the next 5 to 10 years, more value than the next 5 largest companies combined. So that's Amazon, Apple, Nvidia, Meta. Tesla will exceed the value of all those combined. So that's huge. But you will almost say like, and probably, in the company that's probably already the case. But you want Elon to push on the forward looking projects like the Optimus bot, the full self-driving, maybe all the other crazy innovations that Tesla still has on the sleeve, like a VTOL or whatever. Like you want Elon to be tip of the spear, focusing on new industries. But you almost want like the CFO stepping in or CEO stepping in and saying like, okay, this is our roadmap for energy. So they make that tangible as well. And I think when that can happen, they're always a bit careful when they want to predict growth, because they want to keep the cards on their sleeve, but also the resources available if they need to adjust. So they're still very much on their feet, but now they're coming at the moment. If, for example, Tesla Energy has like 3 factories or 10 factories, that you want somebody just focusing on that and also reporting that to shareholders.
Yeah, 100%. Just to finish off on and to grab back on the pay package, so the compensation package. So actually, the reason why it was, let's say, voided by a judge in Delaware was because one shareholder with just 9 shares sued the board for not acting in the shareholders' best interest. Again, crazy, because I think more than 75 or 70% of all the shareholders voted in favor of the compensation package in 2018. We did it again in 2024. Anyway, still off the table. But the rumors are now that the new chair, the chair that has always been there, but the new pay package chair, or the special committee that's actually formed for his compensation package, will be led by Robin Denholm, pretty well known. She's vice chairman. And then again, the setup will be with stock options tied to financial and operational targets, basically similar to 2018 structure. The underlying question here, and you've touched on it very lightly, is the control that Elon has, right? So he's now at 13%, so 13%, 13. And he said, I think something about, I want to go to 20 plus or 25 plus.
25, yeah.
Still, he's then a minority shareholder. So can you maybe explain his reasoning there, or why he wants it? He has shared some words, but I think it's good if you just share some lights on it.
Yeah, so Elon sees it as a huge responsibility to steer the future of AI and robotics into a healthy direction. So he's already concerned about the development of AI already in 2016. So on the website Wait But Why, that's one of the blogs of Tim Urban, Elon has a very early interview where he says, like, basically what we have now with the AI is that we can summon the demon if things go south. That's one of the reasons why he was involved at OpenAI back in the days, and one of the reasons why he's always very much vocal about that there need to be, sort of guidelines for the development of AI. And Tesla is the largest developer of real-world AI in the world, right? So the way we utilize AIs right now is more like large language models and large, let's say, video models. But the company with the most real-world data does videos is Tesla. And Tesla also has been investing in the infrastructure for AI for a long time, with Dojo, with compute in the cars, etc., etc. But it's not clear for the rest of the world that Tesla is the leader at this moment, right? So Tesla is still being perceived as a car company. The full self-driving is one of the first pillars of that whole new world that is opening up. But at a certain point, it will be clear that Tesla is the leader in real-world AI if they are going to launch other applications, for example, or collaborate with XAI on creating video games based on their fleet videos that they have created. And Elon sees that as a huge responsibility, but he says, I should not be in a position where I can fully control the direction of AI, because that's just too dangerous to be in one man's hand. But I should be in a position that I just need a few shareholders to have a majority position, because he feels very uncomfortable when major topics for AI, let's say a topic is like, do we need to open source, for example, all our database because that brings in 100 billion in yearly profits? Then shareholders would say, well, that's amazing. Let's collect that money. But Elon thinks a little bit more ahead. Like, okay, what could be the risk here? Are we leaving then? Is it then a sort of cat out of the bag situation if we do that? And he wants to be sort of the shepherd of the AI for the next 10 years. Now also working very closely with David Sachs in government, and Donald Trump, who is not a technologist, but he is a very clear voice in USA being the leader in AI, and also steering that in a healthy direction where sort of people first, a speciesist approach and pro-humanity approach for AI is going to lead the future.
Yeah. I think he mentioned that very clearly also in one of the speeches that he gave on why he wanted to have a certain amount of say. So let's say the 20-25%. It's not in this sense, it's not for the cash. So I think a lot of people portray him as like he wants to get paid and he needs to, but it's not cash, it's shares.
Yeah.
So unless he sells, it's not converted to cash. So I think that's one. And as like you say, it's more of not being in control of AI, but having a voice which actually matters. And if you look at the cap tables of those big companies, they're in a large part being controlled, or at least the shareholders, the biggest shareholders are funds, funds of funds. And as a shareholder in a fund, let's say Vanguard is like one of the big S&P 500 trackers. They have these ETFs and, you buy a piece of it as a private person. And then that company collects all those private persons and buys a piece of the index, which basically means a piece of every company. So they're the biggest shareholders. And I think you want to prevent those kind of organizations, which are not directly, let's say, interested in the business, but are more of a vessel to create an investment arm or an investment strategy, that they would have a control over this AI stuff, because you don't know who's going to control that in the future.
Yeah, so if we extrapolate on that, let's say Elon's compensation package, how would it roughly look like based on sort of assumptions that we now heard? So assumption number one is Tesla is going to be the most valuable company in the world, exceeding the next 5 companies in market cap. So that's roughly a 20-ish trillion market cap. But let's keep it simple. Let's keep 10 trillion as a market cap, where what then would be sort of the 5-year plan for Elon. It's also fair to assume that Master Plan Part 4, Sustainable Abundance for All, is going to be tied to that goal, because that's Tesla's vision and mission that they have, right? So Master Plan 3 is about transforming the world to sustainable energy, and it's highly recommended for everybody that is interested in Tesla to Google the Master Plan Part 3, because it's a very meticulous breakdown on all the resources they need to make the world fully sustainable. But Master Plan Part 4 will probably be tied to full self-driving cars, to robotics, to Tesla being AI company, and creating sustainable abundance for everybody in the world.
Yeah.
So for all. And Elon's compensation package will also bring him roughly to then 25% of the company, which is a crazy idea if you have a 10 trillion plus market cap company, right? Because then Elon would have 2.5 trillion of that in stock. But for him, it's also resources on, let's say, Tesla is one of the vessels for the larger missions that Elon has. So for Earth, it's sustainable abundance for all. But for humanity, it's also making the leap to Mars. And Elon has like calculations already of what he needs for Mars, how much tonnage of materials there need to be, how much people there need to be to build a self-sustaining ecosystem, and really making life multiplanetary. So at a certain point in the future, when let's say Tesla is in a safe space, and he needs resources to make his dream to make life multiplanetary happen, we could also say like, okay, he's going to use part of that capital for other missions that he has with that company. At this point, SpaceX is self-funding, right? So they have Starlink, they have their customers where they work for, but they're also investing balls to the walls, every penny that they make in the company, into development of Starship and new product. So my assumption will be it will be a 10+ trillion market cap where he wants to bring the company towards. So that will be a 10x from now, roughly. It would be 25% of the shares that he can accumulate over time. But that's roughly, and it's tied to sustainable abundance goals that is the mission of Tesla at this point. So it's an aggressive plan again. So I expect an aggressive plan, but it's aligned with like if I would ask you, for example, like, okay, Kenny, your stock could go 8x, 9x, but like you then need to dilute for, let's say, 10% to give the CEO this compensation package. Will you answer?
Sure. Yeah. Yes. Why not? Yeah.
Exactly.
I think it's a win-win, right? So no, I'm not going to debate about it. I think it's going to look like something like that, indeed. So rumors are that it will look like the 2018 pay package. The only thing I'm really curious about if they're doing some catch up, because if they give him another 5 years or another big goal, I'm not sure how that would land with him. Like, I don't know, but he delivered on a very aggressive plan, didn't get anything for it, and now we're giving him another plan. If I would be in his seat, I would be like, all right, but how do I know that I get this plan? How do I know I get this, these shares?
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I'm really curious about. But nevertheless, like you said, he just mentioned on the call and in the presentation that he foresees to be still the CEO in 5 years. So that's actually a scoop that happened 10 minutes ago. So I think he's very positive on that end.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's hop on to the next thing on the agenda. So that's Elon on energy. So I think he tweeted something like, "Hey, if you're not in for at least a terawatt of
AI compute,
you're not really trying." He's really emphasizing on the importance of energy and energy as a, let's say, a cornerstone of AI and the next phase of humanity. What have you read about it, and what's your view on it?
Yeah, so Elon announced that he was thinking about a sort of compute maximization plan for AI. I'm always not so good in all those watts, the teras, the gigas, etc. But the plan that he has been thinking of is a 3,000-fold compute that the Colossus project for XAI now has. So that's a humongous project, because that was a 20 billion project already. So make that a 3,000-fold, and then the ambitions that Tesla, XAI, and Elon has at that point. But what people don't realize, that would be more energy consumption than the entire continent of the United States at that moment. So that's a huge energy need. And Elon has been thinking about that for a long time, and also has solutions with Tesla to deploy energy and to scale energy on a similar way with their AI compute. So for the AI, they probably have own chips and own solutions then, but they heavily rely on everything that NVIDIA is doing. Mm-hmm. But for energy, they're the sole provider of that, because they basically need to build that whole infrastructure together with that. And it's funny, because also Boring Company needs a lot of these energy pillars for charging stations and whatnot. So that's a whole infrastructure that is now also going to accelerate with the Trump administration being more positive about building tunnels and less legislation and restriction. But also the supercharger network also need like megapacks and all that. So basically Elon funds his own infrastructure and economy that he wants to build. And I'm just very curious, because Tesla at a certain point, right now they're already at 40 billion in cash, right? And they're just hoarding
35-ish,
yeah. So they are deploying a lot. So they're investing roughly 10 billion a year in new projects,
CapEx.
But they're also still hoarding cash, and that will accelerate when the robotaxi network will be profitable at some point. So many people in the Tesla investor community, including myself, are very curious, like what is Tesla going to do with the surplus in cash? And two obvious things for me or three obvious things for me that will happen is they will start deploying robotaxis or have very favorable conditions to buy them, let's say leasing against no loan and that. Second is they will provide their own energy network, including solar farms that will make a return. Or the other one is AI in combination with solar. So maybe their whole AI infrastructure is also in three phases, like we see everything with Elon does. So it's already on a huge scale, but 20 billion in investments is nothing compared to the ambitions that Elon has that are at least 1,000-fold bigger than that. And the big question is, why would you need all that compute, right? And the answer is, I think, very clear and also in front of us. That's the Optimus robot that is going to be launched because Elon expects to have like at least 10 billion of these robots on Earth at a certain point. So he says like every adult person wants to have 2 of these robots for his day-to-day life to take over a whole bunch of tasks that we then have. But if you have 10 billion bots that need to be, self-learning and doing all sorts of tasks, you need a massive amount of AI compute. So Elon is already on that path of making sure that is going to happen as well, because otherwise the Optimus is scaling very fast, but then you lack the compute and energy.
I mean, his brain is already in, 2020 or 2030,
35,
yeah, 35. So and same for the Jensen Huangs and the Carbs and like those CEOs who are busy with all the AI stuff. I think like even Jensen Huang 10 years ago talked about AI, and now it's suddenly here. Yep. Those guys are already planning for it, and that's, I think, the same here with the energy part.
I talked about it on the Next Level Human podcast. That famous picture where Jensen Huang and Elon are, with OpenAI standing on the table there. Yeah, that was a little bit less than 10 years ago, and those guys transformed the world, right? Yeah. So that's exceptional to people that had that vision already back then, and now they have a new vision for the next coming years, 10 years.
Yeah. So in general, I follow the markets quite closely. So you see a lot of energy names or energy companies doing pretty well, turning around. So in solar, etc., it has been quite difficult, especially with the consumer because of the higher rates and stuff. But business to business and all the energy companies there, including nuclear, are really picking up steam and growing earnings. So you see it picking up already.
The demand is crazy. So it's really good to be in the energy business. And people also realize that energy is now becoming more and more of a
bottleneck.
Yeah, bottleneck, but also a national security issue. So other countries, they don't want to rely on sort of external energies. And 10 years ago, with sort of the whole premise of Tesla was that we can grow out of fossil fuels. So everybody that was pro or let's say against wars and the fights for oil and all that, they were very much pro Tesla, which at that point was a little bit more left-leaning, let's say, point of view or worldview. They were all very much in favor of Tesla because they extrapolated, like, if we get rid of fossil fuels, then we don't have that crazy fight on resource anymore. But what you see right now is that we actually get a way more diversified picture. So some countries can still rely on, let's say, oil. The other ones are more solar heavy. The other ones are more nuclear heavy. Like France, for example, is doubling down on nuclear. And that's great because then the more you diversify, the less risk there are for extreme things to happen.
Yeah, I agree. So I think on energy we've covered quite a bit here. Now there's two things where we make a bridge to, let's say, AI and what we already see happening. So one of the things last week which went viral on at least X was Optimus dancing. quite heavily. First with a rope, like tied to his back, and then without a rope. And I shared a post on X and said like, yeah, I've seen more of this crazy stuff. I know Boston Robotics, maybe
Dynamics,
Boston Dynamics, 5 years ago or something, had like this crazy robot doing all kinds of jumps and stuff. I was like, yeah, right. Until I see it actually working in the factories or doing meaningful work, I can see the appliances, But as of now, it's doing nice tasks and having fun.
He's outshining you on the dance floor already.
Well, yeah, but that's not hard, It's very easy. Like, do we really need AI for that? Anyway, but I think CERN and LOJ, they actually responded to my post, and they said like the underlying thing, which is really different, is that the way they trained the FSD model, and we'll go to the FSD in a bit, is on a neural net basis, so net to net, and that's also what happened with Optimus. So they're in a sort of new phase where it's not being coded or it's being controlled, but it was trained by itself based on synthetic data. So they make an artificial environment where it trains, and then they put it to the test in the real world, and then it trains based on making mistakes in real world. Exactly, like a child would do. You will do like, this is what you need to do, and then the child copies, it falls, and then it learns. So it's actually getting there right now. So that was the crux there. I'm not sure if you've seen it. We haven't discussed this before, but can you give your take? Have you seen it? What's your thinking?
I've seen the video, and it was an impressive video. But I'm quite confident in, like, Tesla is like the only company that can really vertical integrate all these things, and they can execute really fast. Because let's say they need to build an actuator, then they have all the knowledge and capabilities already in-house. And I think that's a major thing, because you don't need to hire people all the time for expertise that is just around. So I can imagine that maybe one guy from the battery department or the casting department can be like, hey, dude, can you hop on a call for like 3-4 hours? We have this difficult problem that we have, just want to hear your thought on it. All those resources are already available for Tesla. So that is helping them making massive speed. And Tesla is the only one that already has those AI capabilities of millions and millions of cars that are around. So I think long term those can be benefits. But on the other hand, like, this is one of the many projects that Tesla is executing on, right? So they have batteries, they have cars, they have casting, all that. So a sole humanoid-focused company could probably benefit from their sole focus on that. Although the team seemed to be very focused and executing there.
Yeah.
But I think I'm quite sure that this approach that Tesla has, right, is very unique, because it's like constant iteration, and with every batch that is being manufactured, there are improvements being made, or sort of feels like on the fly. Like, we all remember the teardown of Sandy Munro with the Model 3, and then 2 years from that, he was like, well, this is a whole different car, basically. Nothing is the same as what was going on there. And he said, like, in the car, it's like super complex to iterate when the manufacturing process is already on its way. But Tesla sometimes pushes 40 to 50 iterations on a single car with improvements, which is like mind blowing. And that process is something you see with Optimus. I'm very curious to see his capabilities with his hands. As well, because the hands are one of the most key factors to make it useful, basically. And Elon had that saying, like, we want it to be able to sew with the needle. So a rope needs to go to the needle. That level of detail needs to happen. But what I had for the first time is that, wow, this humanoid actually moves like a human. Normally it's very robotic, but this is very fluent movements. The way he keeps his balance just felt like a very human. And with all the other humanoids that I've been seeing so far, and also all the Boston Dynamics, it felt more like a Terminator moving, creeping up upon us. But this actually feels friendly and nice.
Yeah, it does. I think looking back at it, 2021 they had a guy in a suit.
Yeah.
2020, I don't know, somewhere those days, and we're like only 4 or 5 years.
It felt like a stupid joke, right? So.
Yeah, but he was very serious about it.
Yeah,
and then 2 years later, you had this robot with like, you could see the fans,
the wires,
everything. And now it looks very sleek. It does a lot of things. And I saw an interview with one of the AI guys of Tesla. And they basically said, well, we put the FSD stuff in Optimus. And then we just said, walk through the corridors on the office. And it just did it. So there are some, let's say, overlaps. And my feeling and our feeling, I think, has been that a lot of the teams at SpaceX, Tesla, XAI, they collaborate, they work together. And I think it's all going to be, let's say, strengthening each other, setting each other up. So I think it's actually a good thing, because the way that now Optimus has been trained is the same way that they have been updating FSD. So 2 years ago, which is a nice bridge to the next topic, 2 years ago, they had like 300,000 lines of code of FSD, which they just threw out of the window. Yep. And they were like, well, we're going to do it on the AI way, which is neural nets. Yep. And look at where we are.
So they have all the learnings already that they can apply right here and there, right? So that's amazing.
Exactly. And that's now being used for Optimus. And to emphasize the strength of this type of training, what we're seeing in the last couple of weeks is FSD in Amsterdam, which they're testing, France, in Paris, in the capital, on the big roundabout. I think in Ireland, I've seen it. And it's now also being distributed on right-hand drive countries and motorways. So, and that's also what they said in China, because I was skeptical in China again. So I'm maybe sometimes a skeptical guy. But I said, in China, they cannot train it, So the US says you cannot train data in China, and China says you cannot get data from China out of China, so they can basically not do it. So what they did is they took the model, so the model with the behavior, sort of, and then they put in data from China, which are basically photos, and then trained that model that's already had the base layer to go and drive there. And it learned those specifics quite quickly. So now it looks like you have this base model, you give it the local regulations, and it just drives. Like the handling at Cedar is the base model, and then how it follows the roads and the messages from the boards at Cedar is like really country specific. But my point is, and I didn't believe it for quite a while until I think last 2 weeks. Elon said 10 million cars are going to wake up one day, and I was like, I'm not buying it,
Yeah.
But now it seems that really is in the cards. Of course, pending a regulatory
hardware
approval.
tree, and there are some ifs, but
sure. So there are some ifs on the hardware there, but I mean on the scalability of it, I don't have a lot of reservations anymore. I'm not sure how you are looking at those kind of data, or
no,
you are already convinced.
I agree that's the whole philosophy, but coming up with the philosophy is always not so difficult. But then to actually make it work, and for example, Andrej Karpathy was also very involved in that whole philosophy of making that happen. But sometimes he missed like the physics and the technical nuances to make that happen. So at certain points he left the company and start becoming more sort of AI teacher, involved in startups. But Elon really knows all sort of the nitty-gritty stuff that is also needed for engineering, for infrastructure and all that. And therefore he always doubled down on making that vision happen, while like the AI experts from the first hour that Tesla had on board has already left the ship. That's a very crazy thing. I think it's near, but you need so much real world validation in order to push that through. But that is also going to increase, because now there are just 400,000 ish new cars coming on the road with all these capabilities. But I was very optimistic about Optimus, and Elon also emphasized that a lot of these robots are already walking around in the factory. And on the previous call, I said it will be between, let's say, 3,000 and 10,000 that will be manufactured this year. And it will be Tesla's fastest scaling product ever.
Yeah.
So faster, like right now we have 5 cars coming from the Cybercab. That's the premise, every 5 seconds. But the Optima robot will probably be there every 2 or 3 seconds. So it will scale like massive.
Yeah.
And it's going to lead to very strange situations, because I've been thinking about that as well. Like, for example, what we see right now in Europe is that we don't have FSD, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're waiting.
We have basic workings, but it's terrible. I use it today. It's terrible.
So we are very much behind on that, and nobody has a clear answer when it comes. We see some testing. Case was bullish on May, but also Tesla was there on May. But also Elon got informed by Case, because Case posted the update, and Elon retweeted his post, let's say, with cool. So Elon also is not like very much on top of what happens in Europe. That's, he has other priorities. So he gets his information literally from Case on X. While there are, of course, also people internally working on that, but probably not reporting then to Elon. But long story short, also for the competitiveness of the US market, if US companies has the first 10 million humanoid robots and AI, that's basically 10 million super productive workers that are suddenly active in your country. That's a huge boost for your GDP.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how that in sort of the world that we're living in right now, where the cards are being dealt totally new, right? So Trump was in the Emirates together with Elon and a whole bunch of other people, like listed on your agenda.
Yeah.
And basically what Trump said, like, listen, all our interventions of the last 20 to 30 years, like building up Kabul, they all have not succeeded. But if we left it to the local people building their own countries, look what happened to Dubai, look what happened to Abu Dhabi and all that. Yeah. So he basically said, well, this whole globalist approach is coming to an end. We, do your own thing. We might have different views on how we run countries, but you basically do your thing, we do our thing. So the era where the US is trying to stamp their approach to every country on Earth is coming to an end, and they're looking back to themselves, like, how can we create sustainable, compatible advantage when we focus on infrastructure, when we focus on all the things that we can create. Yeah. And all the companies of Elon are going to play a very big role in that, obviously.
Yeah.
And that gives them confidence as well, because like if Trump says, like, Elon, we have this problem, like this massive amount of debt that we have as country. What do we need to do there? We need to lower our spend, and we need to increase our growth. What can we do for growth? And then say, well, listen, Donald, give me a year or 3, and I have 10, 20 million robots for us working.
Getting output. Yeah. Because basically, it's like the growth of a company is the output in services and products. We've been in a declining population in Western countries. And I think now you get more awareness. So Elon has been shouting it off the roofs for quite a bit. It never got really attention, in my opinion, in the people around me, not being so closely following Elon. But now we see Jensen. So he mentioned it last week as well. So
what did he mention?
Well, he mentioned that we're in a declining population phase. So people get less children, they get children later. We get a lot of boomers becoming too old now, or starting to get into a pension age, so to speak. And there's not enough workforce anymore. And you have like basic economics, which has been written in the 15 or the 16 or the 1700s. And it's very simple. The output of a country in products and services is also the wealth that the country creates. Mm-hmm. So the more you make in products and services, either for your own country or the rest of the world, the more prosperous
you will be.
You will be, right? And at the moment, people are getting too old, or you have not a lot of population, or the population is getting smaller.
Or only consuming.
Or only consuming. Then there's not a lot of products and services being produced anymore. AI can help this. So there might be an efficiency boost. So there can be more output with the same amount of people. I think we had the same back in the days going to
electricity,
steam engine, those kind of stuff. Also internet, I think, has contributed to it. But now AI can bring the next push, and then the Optimus can really, or robotics in general, can really get us on the map and create a bridge for what we're lacking in population. And also what Jensen said was the following. He's like, same as Elon, Tesla is really advanced with their robotics, and on FSD, where NVIDIA is active as well, they say autonomous vehicles, Tesla is just way ahead. But he also emphasized that we have Tesla, then there's no other US company in the top 10. It's all Chinese. Yeah. And the Chinese have been doubling down on energy. They've been doubling down on EVs. They've been doubling down on humanoids. So all of the stuff that we Westerns were good in the past, innovation, producing more services and products, it is really transferring to China nowadays. So I think that's one of the worries. And one of the things that Trump now tries to do is to connect like the UAE and all those very wealthy countries with the US as well, to make sure that they have more market and that there's good allies. And that's one of the agenda points that we had. So Elon, Karp from Palantir, and Jensen were in the UAE. Starlink is active now there, so we see Starlink getting more broad as well. And Elon, I got some messages on my phone. Elon actually said that Starlink might go public, but there's no rush, so let's see. Mm-hmm. They teased with robotaxi, so they said it will be compatible for the UAE, but maybe for India as well. Okay. And in India, there's huge population. Yep. But the unit economics are harder there because they earn less. And the next one, they also showed Optimus. So they actually brought an Optimus to the UAE and showed it to the sheikhs and to all the people there. So I think they're still very excited about it. They're trying to sell America, trying to get more allies. But I think
I thought that like the results were like 600 billion-ish invested. Yeah, in sort of US related companies out of that whole meeting, right?
Yeah, commitment. So I've been digging into, because from my work, we're busy with a couple of cases also, which are looking at the UAE because they're quite innovative, and the UAE is really doubling down on building the future. Innovation. You know, I think so from my perspective, they're really excited about the future, more excited than we are in Western Europe, and I think this only shows that the US wants to position itself as being the innovative party or partner in this sense. But I'm really excited about that area as well, and all the things that they're building. So
yeah, I think they're not really a nation of builders, but they're a nation of sort of financiers, basically, and they're choosing their fields. Obviously they all the wealth that is being created in that area is oil money, but they also realize that it is a finite resource in the next 20 to 30 years. So they're sort of, developing a new a vision where it can go, and they very much see this whole area as a sort of center hub for the world, which I think already is, because it connects the East, it connects Africa, it connects Europe, it connects the US, and they're for sure going to play like a very pivotal role in the future.
Yeah. There was one thing on the agenda which just popped up based on what we're discussing right now, but it has been the interview given by Ashok Elluswamy. He's head of AI at Tesla. I'm not sure if you've seen it or heard about it.
Not seen it.
It's partly in Indian, so it's kind of hard to listen to. I tried, but then they're like English and Indian. I couldn't make any sense of it. But there's a lot of ground that's being covered. So I'll just give you the highlights, which I think were very informative. So the first one is on the future of AI and self-driving. So he actually said that he believes that in 2035, no one will actually be driving a car themselves. It will be a hobby like a horse that we still have, but it's for people who like it, who have a hobby. And he says that he sees in 2025 the launching of Tesla's robotaxi, still June. So he also confirms. I think it's good. It's not only Elon who's now bullish, but also still the team, which is good. Then he also gave some highlights on working with Elon. So he said, in short, he's funny, relentless, and visionary. But he spoke about his work effort. So he works 80, 90 hours a week. He's really smart. But he said the way he can predict the future is just mind-blowing. Yeah. And the way he's positioning for it. I think he's been doing that for like years and years. Yeah. And also what is nice is the guy who held the podcast said something also about Elon, who said, without Ashok and our team, we'd just be another car company. So I think that also
highlights his role.
Yeah, exactly. So also good to get his take, I think, on it. And then he went on Optimus. So he called it literally magic combination of AI and robotics. So I think, it underscores what they're doing. And then he said he's
always very optimistic. That's what I felt from his earlier posts and all that. He's like, it's really a positive sign, of course, that he's so optimistic. But
I think you have to be, right? Because same as what Elon said, like if he would not be optimistic and Elon would come in and he would not do it. He's like, all right, build a humanoid. And if you're not optimistic, you would be like, well, I'm a skeptic then. So let's not go there.
Like, let's say if you have Franz Holzhausen, he's always a bit more reserved, like intelligent guy. He's an optimist by nature, of course, too. Otherwise, he would not be in that position. But Ashok is like really one of the highest optimists, I think, in the whole Tesla team there as well. So it's, I like the guy.
He gives good insights, I think, on X as well. And he said something that touches one of the earlier topics we had on this podcast as well. So he discussed the broader impact of AI. And what he said is that, or actually he warned that resource manipulators, so those controlling compute power, will actually shape the future of AI.
Okay, what does he mean by that? Do you know that?
Well, those companies who control the compute power.
Yep.
So the clusters that Tesla is building, the ones that have, let's say, the upper hand in the compute, they will shape the AI because it's dependent on the compute power.
On them,
yeah. So I think that's one of the reasons why Elon came with like, hey, how can we do this 30x and be the leader and remain the leader? So that drops us to one of the last points of our agenda before we go to the final point of Robert Scoble's post. But Satya Nadella was with Elon Musk. You said it before as well. It was not super enlightening or something. It was just like a pretty superficial, I would say, conversation. Anything what struck me and what the essence is also for the listeners is that XAI will be on Azure, which is basically their data centers and stuff. But the underlying question that I had, because we know about let's say the beef that Elon has with OpenAI and Satya Nadella backing OpenAI and Microsoft, etc. Like, I'm actually wondering, like, what does this say anything about their collaboration with OpenAI between Microsoft and OpenAI? And is there any thoughts behind that? Maybe give your take on that.
Yeah, I think it's in general good when people collaborate instead of having fights. And Microsoft is, I always said, sort of a hidden giant because it just executes very in a disciplined way. They have products and services you use in your daily lives. And they're just, no matter how you turn it, it's just an excellent run company, right? That's all coming down to that. And CEO of Microsoft is in his own way is also like a visionary, but he gives a lot of room to, let's say, other leaders within his company. Where, for example, with the Tesla, Elon is the visionary and working out on those fields. CEO of Microsoft is more like an enabler of that. And what I see more and more is that, like also the CEO of Google and Nvidia, they all recognize as Elon and Tesla as leaders in the field that they're at. Yeah. Especially Elon as a sort of leader, visionary, where the world is heading. So those leaders are not stupid people that only want to follow their own course, right? So they say, like, just like Jensen Huang, like, who are the winners in this field of AI? Well, it's Elon with his company, so XAI, Tesla. So how, can we help him? Can we align with their mission? Aligning us with Tesla will be beneficiary for the future of our company. And the same counts for Microsoft, of course, because they want to scale their cloud business just like everybody does. And one thing for sure is that all Elon's companies need ton of cloud storage. So I think it's just smart leadership of not being in your own way all the time. And the same counts for Elon, because he knows, like, Microsoft have a lot of resources. They can help me grow in these certain fields. And if they can help me with the heavy lifting that we need to do for the next, let's say, 10 years, then it's all good. Yeah. So in the past, Elon always had this problem, like, as Tesla, we only wanted to have the technology and we didn't want to do the manufacturing ourselves, but nobody could manufacture that whole thing. So we needed to do all ourselves. Yeah. But for other disciplines like cloud and compute, he's more than happy to work with other industries.
Yeah, sure. The underlying current that I feel a little bit, and might not be what you see, but my view is that in the past, people from, let's say, PayPal and more of the, the original thinkers, people are not afraid of saying the wrong things, but just saying what they think and what they believe in, like the Peter Thiels and those kind of guys. I think they always backed Elon because they worked with him, and he's a little bit of an oddball, I think. But now you see people who are very political, very correct, also backing him. So it's Satya, it's Jensen Huang. So you see a sort of, so that's a little bit my feeling. That
bit of a vibe shift.
There. Yeah, a bit of a vibe shift. So also the Satya Nadellas who maybe in the past were like, well, this crazy Elon guy, let's not get too close to him, are now more edging towards him. Like, okay, he's maybe a little bit of an oddball, but like...
Yeah, I think they all recognize Elon's role in shaping the future. And like Jensen Huang made that bet already 10 years ago, which was favorable for his business. And now more and more people are going to do that, because if you think about it, let's say Tesla is going to be a 10 trillion, a 20 trillion company in the next 5 years, right? And of course, the CEOs of the company, they see that happening with all the infrastructure being in place. Then let's see if we can get 10% of that of our business. Well, that's still a 1 or 2 trillion business line that we then can have. So they just jump on the opportunity that is at hand. Yeah,
no, 100%. All right, before we go to the last topic, people maybe have seen me smiling in between, but we have a guy who's helping us on the podcast. He's been like sleeping in and out. I've seen in my corner.
He's a whole day of podcasting already.
Yeah, so. He's a whole day podcasting here. He's like sitting in the sun.
Listen to my monotone voice.
Yeah, listening to like those boring Tesla geeks, He's like chilling a little bit in the corner. We're still good, right? All right.
Very good.
So let's go to the last topic. Was put by you on the agenda, Demian. It's from Robert Scoble. Maybe you can give the listeners a little bit of a background on who Robert is for the ones who don't know, and then also some highlights on his tweet, and I can get into the tweet if you want.
Sure. Yeah, he's a tech journalist following tech already very closely, and new gadgets, new innovation, and he's always been on the forefront of development. He's also a huge FSD and Elon fan. And basically, he's a futurist talking about things that are going to happen in the future. And Elon retweeted like the next 10 years, a lot of things will change. Replying on the list that Robert provided, but Robert provided like 15-ish things that will change in the near future. But almost all of them, let's say 10 of them, are being enabled by Elon's company. So that ties a little bit in the discussion that we have of the CEOs, like they're just seeing Tesla and Elon shaping the future. It will be more visible that they will be leaders in the AI, because Elon makes this weird jokes like you need 1 terawatt of compute, otherwise you're not really serious about this whole thing. Mm-hmm. But not many, if for example you're Microsoft, are you then going to deploy so much capital into AI? It's a very risky bet, because that's basically all their money. And maybe they're not so comfortable in this whole AI world. So maybe they say, well, maybe let Elon do all that building. We're going to help with maybe cloud or maybe services or maybe things that people are going to use to enhance their productivity, something that is more in line with their own mission and visions. They won't say that they cannot invest in that whole thing. So maybe they say, well, we do a revenue share or whatever sort of a deal that they can make based on that. But I think they're all going to line up and see like Elon and his companies are shaping the future. We want to play a role in that. How can we do that? So it's an interesting discussion that we had on the GDP of certain countries, right? Because it's all the goods and services that you produce. If you look at the last 20 years, the wealth of the US is being generated by a handful of companies, right? So it's USA is not producing more. So there are not better cars coming off the road. There's not better food coming from the US. They only won the let's say this whole war with new software, with e-commerce, with SaaS, with cloud, with all that, being very innovative in those kind of spaces. But basically, China took over the whole production stuff, like building cars, building goods and services. Europe is still good in food supply, I think. But what you see is that then industries are moving. Let's say AI, robotics is now a tier 1 industry, where all the wealth and money is being created in the next decade. But that doesn't mean that a tier 2 industry or tier 3 industry cannot be attractive. And what I see happening here is that the Microsofts and the Googles and the Nvidias are sort of opting in becoming a tier 1.5 or a tier 2 industry and letting sort of Tesla taking that lead. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it could be. I think his tweet in general went about like, how is the future going to look like? Like, what are robots? Basically his question was, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
That's his basic question. If we have robots doing all the stuff at home, you have a robot, somebody's working for you. We have an age of abundance. Well, what are you looking for? For your brains?
No, my I cannot.
Those are not available.
No, but I'm the company that I'm building is Next Level Human.
Show it to the camera.
Yeah, so there's this one. And the whole idea of Next Level Human is answering that questions like what are we going to do as humans? So that's a question where I don't have all the answers to, but it's something that I'm exploring and trying to find solutions for.
Yeah.
But the main premise that we have is like, okay, robotics and AI are coming. Are we going to make ourselves obsolete? Like that could be an opportunity, or are going to collaborate and using the AIs and using the robotics as a way to enhance our potential as humans.
Yeah.
So, for example, my one of the things that I've been talking about is that the Optimus robot, once it will be introduced, it will probably be the best personal trainer that you can imagine, because it stands next to you. It can measure your temperature with sensors. It can measure your movements. It can do basically all the things that are needed to be an excellent personal trainer. It has a database of endless practices that you then can do, and it memorizes every repetition and every every step that you have been doing. So are you then going to use the AI to become super strong yourself and creating new cognitive capabilities, etc.? Or are you going to just lay on the couch and let Optimus do the whole thing? And I think it's for us humans to sort of adapt to what I call a production mindset. So you can either produce something or you can consume something. That's a sort of binary approach to that. And if we can adapt with the AI and the robotics to become producers ourselves as well, we're going to have an age of abundance. But if we're only going to lay down and let sort of that robot do all the tasks and serve us, we're going to have abundance as well. But then we will ourselves be in a very bad health and in a very bad shape.
Yeah.
But it's going to be an interesting question. But I think the answer to that question is already being found in how wealthy people, or people that accumulated wealth on a very young age, are going to spend the rest of their years, right? Because when you have all the money in the world already, thus all the resources, what then are you going to do? Are you going to contribute, or are you going to filling a void and not knowing what to do? And it's a very existential question. It's a difficult question.
It's more philosophical, or philosophical. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like it's more about philosophy that you have about life and what you want to do, instead of I need to earn my money. Because we need to eat.
We're not trained or learned that way to think about these kind of things, right? So maybe
in one way or another we are, right? Because we're basically trained to contribute to society by getting a job and etc. So there is some, but the whole dynamic will change to where you don't need the job, but you still want to contribute to society. And there's never, at least when I was in school, there was never a session where people were like, what do you want to do with your life? There was never. It was just like, okay, what are you good at? Well, okay, you understand economics. Let's study economics.
You're not useless. Get this job. No. And no, I think because it's going to be very interesting, because I'm always fascinated by the mindset that the people had building the cathedral. So I always find it fascinating that those builders and the architects of those buildings, they never saw the end result. So the average life expectancy was like 50 years old. And for example, the cathedral in Köln, it took almost 400 or 500 years to finish that whole building. So that first generation of architects and builders were just doing groundwork stuff. And then the next generation was building on top of that. But they had this mindset like, okay, this is going to be important for our community. This is important
religion.
For our religion. This is important for our legacy. And we're actually doing this thing. We are contributing to the end result without ourselves benefiting from it. That's a really extraordinary mindset if you think about it. Because right now we want to do something and we want to reap the benefits like the day after, right? Or real time. Yeah. And so I think it will be amazing because now then we're not sort of resource constrained when it comes to labor with the Optimus robot, that we can actually start making these long-term bets and plans again. Yeah. But the reality is probably something very glitchy, like a TikTok version of the Optimus. Doing something that is not useful at all.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's a nice thing also for our listeners to put in the comments to maybe share what they would be doing.
What are you going to do when Optimus is taking all your work out of your
exactly
hands?
And when the age of abundance is here, like, what do you think you're gonna do?
Table tennis.
No, I don't know. Maybe sitting in the sun. Yeah, you can all have all kinds of things.
I'm defeated by the robot again. I think the most logical thing to do is find fields where you can outcompete the robot, right? So probably those fields will be...
I think if you drill it down, like, you can make it very simple, right? So we've been in longevity and stuff. So maybe what you want to do is focus on health and focus on connection with other people, you know, so which I think is like existential to human nature as well, and might be more, let's say, it's not as tangible as my Excel files are, where I try to contribute. But I think if you go that way, for me, that feels like a logical way, like we're humans, we're meant to make social interactions. You want to prolong your life. You want to contribute to life. That's by creating more lives, etc. So we might go in that way. But yeah, the main question I have there is like, are we ready as a society for that part? And we've been in, let's say, offsets of that as well. Like we've had the lost civilizations and that kind of stuff in the past. So that might be where we end. We have this age of abundance, and we're like, "There's no fun. Let's just destroy it."
I have a funny story on that. I was once in a mushroom ceremony, and
you're still in it, or not?
Yeah, we were there in a sort of nice environment, and people were making music on the guitar and singing, and it's like, well, we had this discussion where, wow, this is so nice, you know, being together, having this shared moments as humans, connecting with nature, etc. And said like, yeah, this is probably sort of the future of humans. And then I walked out, but I had my phone in my pocket, and the phone obviously connects with the Tesla. So I walk by my Tesla, and then I see the whole car like lighting up, and this whole all the functions already, like the screen going on and the music starts playing on all that. So it's like, it's already here. Like we can share this beautiful moment with humans, and have the robots sort of waiting for us until we use them, because that's basically what their role is going to be, like a 24/7 available private butler. Then that is super smart. Smarter than you. So what do you do?
That's not too difficult. Well, I think it has been a nice episode. I've missed our companions, to be honest. So there's not a lot of weaving here, and we haven't heard any curses from our beloved Case.
Yeah,
we haven't heard.
We're not regulated this episode.
Mr. Red Tape is not here, or Mr. Blue Tape, they call it nowadays. But nevertheless, we're very close to June. So next week it's going to be the 27th that we are going to record this.
Exciting.
It's going to be exciting. I'm still looking forward to it.
What is your estimation that a Cybercab is going to make on a daily base in revenue? Just a
daily?
Guesstimate. Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good question. I think the Waymos are earning like much more.
Almost $300 a car, right?
It's crazy, and they're doing much more than the average Uber driver, because it needs to sleep at sea. Yeah, they can just drive. They do some crazy stuff, which you see as well on X, you know. So also, we'll definitely see Tesla doing crazy stuff as well in the news whenever it goes live. But so I'm not sure on the numbers. But if you take, let's say, a full day and it needs 4 to 6 hours of charging, that leaves around 18 hours. Yeah, how many kilometers can it do in an hour?
Let's say it makes $15 an hour, then it's still...
Yeah, so let's say $1 per kilometer.
Yeah.
I think that's also something that ARC has. It can drive on average maybe 20 kilometers an hour. So 20 times...
A little bit more, probably.
Yeah, but 20 times, let's say 20. 20 times 20 or 20 times 18. We're at 360.
Yeah.
Rounded down, $300 a day. And then it needs a couple of days that it's offline, right? Because it needs tires, etc. But you still have 360 days times 300 a day. That's 108,000.
Yeah, so
I think it will be far less.
Let's say it will be 150 on the low end spectrum and 400 on the high end spectrum of earning. But that's so ridiculous, because then the car, earns itself back already in less than a half year.
Yeah, and let's take a couple of weeks off, and let's say it drives for not 365 a year, but maybe 300. Let's say $200 a day. It's $60K a year.
Yeah. My main question, I believe that Cybercab rollout that will happen, right? So it can be this year, next year.
It's the scaling.
Yeah. But I'm more curious to what happens to that whole fleet of cars that is already there, and how that is going to contribute on that. So that's I drive the Tesla Plaid, right? I bought FSD back then. I bought it on the one hand for my own comfort, which I don't have because I live in Europe. But on the other hand, I use it. I said, wow, it would be amazing if it could drive itself and just earn additional income here.
Sure.
But they talked about the ride-hailing app, but that is the number one thing I'm most curious to, how that is going to be implemented, because that will bring that whole service already to a scale of potentially already 7-8 million cars available.
Yeah.
So if they can say like, okay, we have now this service, it's going to make 150 euros a day. And by the way, 1 million cars can already use this thing. There will be 150 million euros revenue a day that is then being utilized by the fleet. So then the numbers get bonkers really fast.
Yeah, let's see, because also Tesla needs to take a chunk out of it. Might be 20%, 30%. You don't know, right? So, but I've seen we're already past 1 hour and 20 minutes, or 1:26. So, do we call it a day?
Yeah. Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks.
And
see you next week.
Next time we have the stars of our show, Flora and Case again with us.
Maybe we can take a day off and go on vacation.
Never.
Always working.
That's not to Mars as number one. So
we don't have time to sleep. All right.
Thanks. Take care, buddy.
Cheers.